What's up, guys? MK Tom Brady here, joined by Mike Hollow once again.
Hey guys.
And this is going to be a good video. I did hear a lot of people, in the comments and both my comments and your comments talk about why you guys so negative. Why don't you talk about solutions? So that's what this podcast is. It's our thoughts, and we're going to bounce this off each other on what needs to change in Mortal Kombat to make it a better game. Before that, I do want to start with the passing of Akira Toriyama and a comment you made where you said, you know, to either remove Mortal Kombat from EVO because of its low entrance being so low for where it is. Clearly, there's a lack of interest there for Dragon Ball Fighters, or do something with Dragon Ball Fighters along with everything else.
Yeah, just Akira Toriyama's death was very shocking to me. I heard, obviously I was asleep when the news broke, but when I woke up, it was one of those things where I didn't want to believe it, and I sort of shrugged it off, and I was like, it's one of those things where people are posting about a dead celebrity. They do it about Jackie Chan all the time, and I'm always like, it's not really funny to joke about someone's passing, but it became very clear after a while that my phone kept pinging off, because obviously everyone in my friendship group knows me as the Dragon Ball Z guy. And when the news obviously sunk in, when I heard it, I was obviously upset, but it didn't really sink in. And I sat there in the morning thinking about it, and I had a shower. I'm not embarrassed to say I had a little bit of a cry when I was in the shower, like one of those cries where you sort of just look up, that popular Vegeta gif where he's just looking up at the rain. And I was thinking about all of the bonds that I've got because of Dragon Ball, and all of the friends I've made and still have, even some of my friends that have passed away that I made through Dragon Ball, and how Toriyama, basically without knowing, he probably doesn't know because he was such a private man, he was very disconnected from the world, that he had a hand in raising an entire generation of men. And I know women watch Dragon Ball as well, but when I was growing up, it was predominantly watched by boys. And there wasn't a lot of things around back then, or even now, probably to even more, like, it's more prevalent now. There's not a lot of things around that instill the kind of discipline in you that a show like Dragon Ball did. Dragon Ball is the reason that I got so heavily into fitness. I know that it influenced tons of guys today to go to the gym. The whole saying that, oh, this guy looks brolic, actually comes from Broly because of Broly's aesthetic in the legendary Super Saiyan film. A lot of my closest friends we met through Dragon Ball. I remember when I was very young and I would come into school and my friends would be like, oh, have you seen Dragon Ball? And we'd sit around talking, and I'm still friends with those people today. Even people that I met through other animes, those animes only exist because of Dragon Ball. You can see Dragon Ball's influence in One Piece and Naruto and other shonen anime. The entire shonen genre is basically thanks to Toriyama. His manga came about in a time where it was starting to really blow up, and it like jumped on at the perfect time in the West. And obviously Dragon Ball shaped culture, it's changed lives. In Mexico, I think in Latin America, it's like the biggest thing. I saw today that like Argentina was just shut down, people in the streets celebrating his life. I heard stories about how the cartel have just completely called a ceasefire. There's been no murders or something like that. I don't know how true that is, but I really wouldn't be surprised. Even when I went to central London, the streets were packed with people with Dragon Balls and posters. And even in the world of gaming, his influence was so like unmatched. There's so many games. If you just look at Tekken and Street Fighter, you can see Dragon Ball's influence straight away. You can see Dragon Ball's influence in the final battle of both Tekken 7 and Tekken 8, even down to something like the Hadoken, the hand motion, the Shoryuken is very similar to Goku's Super Dragon Fist. So yeah, his influence over the entire like pop culture as a whole is unmatched. The only time I ever saw people this upset for a celebrity passing away was MJ, and I think this might, from what I've seen, this might even be worse. I don't know if it's because I'm very much involved with like the anime community, but it's a lot of people have been contacting me because obviously my
And for
room is
people that are too young, which you mean Michael Jackson.
Michael
Some
Jackson,
people,
yeah,
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 some people,
yeah.
yeah.
But like my room is full of Dragon Ball stuff. I have Dragon Ball tops. I've got Dragon Ball slippers on right now. I'm wearing a Dragon Ball top. And most of the time, when people buy me Christmas presents, it's Dragon Ball or One Piece related. Even my mum, she like said to me, "Oh, I heard about what happened to the Goku man," because she didn't know his name. And she said to me that when I was a kid, I was a very moody looking kid. I didn't really smile at people very often. The only time that she would catch me smiling is at 7 o'clock every day, 7 p.m. Toonami, Dragon Ball Z, That's the first time she'd see in the day me cracking a smile, just glued to the TV. So yeah, his passing is a it's a massive deal. Like people are gonna continue mourning him. People have been re-uploading the Dragon Ball GT opening song. I'm sure you've probably seen it. It's like such a famous song,
Yep.
and yeah, it's just a massive loss. It's a massive shame, and it's really nice to see that. I'm 31 years old, and I think to people that don't understand what Dragon Ball's about, they just see two aliens punching each other, and they're like, "Oh, this is just typical boy stuff." But there's so much profound messaging in Dragon Ball that really, and if you pay attention to what they're talking about, and you even pay attention to how the characters are designed, because the Saiyans in Dragon Ball, one of their perks, I guess you would say, one of their abilities is that when you beat them down, they automatically get stronger when they get back up. And it's like a metaphor for, like, you get knocked down 8 times, you get up 9 times, and you'll get stronger if you do that. And I think that because there's not a lot of shows like Dragon Ball these days, I would encourage any parent, if their kid's gonna get into watching cartoons or anime, put them in front of Dragon Ball first, and let Dragon Ball take it from there. But yeah, this I did a tribute to him on my channel. It was very upsetting for me and the people around me, but even in the gaming world, because I know we're going to talk about EVO in a second, his influence is just unmatched. So yeah.
And you thought, because of MK's, look, there's no other good way to put it. There's a lack of interest in Mortal Kombat at tournaments offline. I think this was the last EVO. You had mentioned maybe it should no longer be an obligatory game. Like, it just put in just because of its name, and no longer because of the scene, or that people, apparently, like, this is not a good look. 300 something people. The game, I doubt it will even hit 1,000.
Yeah.
And while their competitors will hit, 4, 5, 6,000, Street Fighter and Tekken, and even Third Strike will probably have. I wouldn't be surprised to see 1,000 for that game, which that game came out in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning, this could be a time to remove MK or just put in Dragon Ball alongside, of it, the games there, or just remove MK for Dragon Ball.
Yeah, so I would not remove the King of Fighters, because I know the King of Fighters is the game below Dragon Ball. The reason that I wouldn't remove King of Fighters is that I think there's a valid reason for it being so low. And I think King of Fighters is massive in, I think, Latin America. In Mexico, they love King of Fighters. I don't know if they're having issues traveling to EVO. So it being so low on the listing, I don't think is indicative of the game being unpopular. And King of Fighters is kind of respected by everyone, even if the player base is a bit smaller. Mortal Kombat's being shit on by everyone right now, and Dragon Ball FighterZ is not at EVO. And I think that this is... First of all, even if Akira Toriyama didn't pass away, I think it would still be wrong for Dragon Ball to
It would
not
send
be
a
there.
message. It would send a message to NetherRealm for sure.
Yeah, it would send a message to NetherRealm, but if I'm being completely honest with you, NetherRealm can go fuck themselves. For me, it's not even about them. It's the fact that Dragon Ball FighterZ has been a very popular game, and even though the popularity has dwindled down over time and there's been issues of rollback, I think that this being probably the last year it's going to be at EVO, or if this was the one it was going to be at, this would be the last time it gets any real entrance. They're probably going to drop something else soon. We know Sparking Zero is coming out soon, so the attention is going to shift there. But now Akira Toriyama has passed away, his influence over our major fighting games is also unmatched. You can see it everywhere, from Ryu's Hadouken to his Shoryuken. There's a direct correlation to the Kamehameha and the Super Dragon Fist. If you look at the way the Mishimas behave, some of their mannerisms, Kazuya's mannerisms are kind of reminiscent of Vegeta's, even his design. If you put Vegeta and Kazuya next to each other, there's similarities straight away, even in the way they behave. So I think because of Toriyama's contributions, his endless contributions to the gaming world, whether it's direct or indirect, and the fact that everyone hates Mortal Kombat 1 right now, if the guys over at EVO had any sense, and it is a business, I think that they should remove Mortal Kombat 1 and they should put Dragon Ball FighterZ in there and give the game a proper send-off and tribute to Akira Toriyama. And then it should, they should put it on the main stage. It should be on prime time when the other big fighting games are about to come on. And I think that would be not only a special moment for EVO, and pay respect to a man that probably indirectly had a hand in building EVO because of the influence he's had over so many other games, but also it would give Dragon Ball FighterZ the send-off it deserves.
Yeah, I think this is a huge thing to see just how low the entrants are. And I think Mortal Kombat has always been an obligatory game. They never had to work to build their scene. It was just handed to them because it's Mortal Kombat. So, which is why they also feel slighted sometimes. You know, where other games, hey, look, you're just not a premier game at this event. There's not enough interest for it. So we're going to put you on an early slot, or we're going to have your top 32 in the back area. That's considered an insult. Where every other fighting game has had a moment like that, pretty much.
Yeah.
At some point or another, even going to Third Strike, where it took a backseat to Marvel. It was, but Mortal Kombat, because it was handed to them, anything is a slight. Early top eight, disrespect. Our top 32 is kind of on the side here, side setup, disrespect. So they've never had to pay a single due, and no dues ever. It was just Mortal Kombat was gifted a spot as the number two game in the FGC hierarchy, even over Tekken, from the very first second it was ever released as MK9. And this is no longer the case. And this is, kind of why they always say, well, we were treated poorly. That was never really, it was not actually quote unquote poorly. They were not treated as well as some of the other fighters, but there's a reason for that as well. And a lot of that goes back to NRS could do things to make games that people want to get behind again, like they used to in their early eras. So I would like to see MK removed as an obligatory game until something changes, and I would love to see Dragon Ball there because I do think it would show out tremendously, and it would be a great tribute to someone like you said who has influenced so much from pop culture to gaming to other animes. It was people's interest. It was people's entryway to anime in general for so many people that never even got into it, didn't know about it. So it was the influence is so wide
Yeah.
in how many things it influenced from people to games to pop culture. Uh, yeah, so I would agree with you on
Just
that.
who I am as a person as well. I can directly attribute it to Dragon Ball and the lessons that are instilled through watching the characters train and fight. So I think in terms of EVO and showcasing something, not Dragon Ball Fighter specifically, but the franchise is indirectly or directly responsible for the stage that most of us are on right now, whether it's gym or games or anime or friendships or mindset. So, and Mortal Kombat is obviously not on that level. And if it's the weak link, I think it should go. And I think the MK scene should just hold that.
I would agree with you 100%. And going into Mortal Kombat, you did a video in which you talked about some changes you'd like to see to Mortal Kombat, and we're going to discuss that. But first, you wanted a disclaimer. You said that people kind of mistook what you were saying in the comments.
Yeah, so there was a couple people. It became very clear to me that Mortal Kombat 11 was probably their first fighting game, and then obviously transitioned into Mortal Kombat 1. And one thing that was brought up a few times, not too many. I think most people got it, but there was a couple that didn't. So in case they're listening, they seem to think that crushing blows and counter hits in other fighting games are the same thing. So that's my fault for not explaining it well enough because I didn't think people would make that mistake. But for those people that think they're the same,
Counter hits and
basically,
crushing blow, you're saying.
yeah. So
The people thought counter hits and crushing blow were the same thing,
yeah,
basically.
they thought that crushing blows was MK's counter hits. So in MK11, there are a couple moves that operate as counter hits that activate the crushing blow, but the crushing blow mechanic is a gimmick mechanic that is activated through several different conditions. For example, Noob Saibot has a crushing blow that is almost inaccessible because of the way they designed the moveset. There's no reason to really stand block against Noob Saibot in the first two seasons of the game before they made everything open to customize. And so he had a move where you'd press back 3 and he would hook your legs, and then you press 1+2 and he would hook your face, and that would activate a crushing blow. Now that has nothing to do with counter hits whatsoever. That's just like landing the move, being able to land the move. Counter hits are when somebody throws a punch at you or a kick or throws their body at you, and you throw out your move at the same time and it counters it. And so crushing blows did not operate that way. There were some moves that operated that way, and so they would fall under the counter hit banner. But across the board, that's not how counter hits work. And the reason that counter hits are so important for fighting games is that it gives an otherwise plain move new applications and new ways to apply it. So an example that I used in the video is Steve's back 1. It's just a normal punch if it's landed without a counter hit, and you can combo it with a couple more back ones, but you don't get much damage for it. When you get a counter hit of that move, it turns into a launcher, and so it suddenly makes that move much more dangerous because it's a very fast move. So say for example you had a character like Melina who's very good at whiff punishing. Imagine how much more dangerous Melina could be if you had counter hits, because if she's good at whiff punishing, like Street Fighter where they have two versions of counter hit, she could get another type of counter hit and it would open her up to new combo possibilities. But the problem with Mortal Kombat games is that they're so bare bones and they're so lacking complexity that whatever you do on the stage, the moves don't change no matter where you are on the stage. Even with a character that I use, General Shao, his stand 2, which is his axe, where he sort of pokes you in the face with it, that would be an excellent whiff punish move or counter hit move that could maybe allow you to go straight into back 2, the launcher, rather than doing 2-2-2 over and over again, or 2-2 into knee. And so that's why counter hits are important for games. It's not something that you would attribute to identity. You would attribute it to a lack of effort on NRS's part, that they just didn't include it.
Before I weigh in on counter hits, I want to, when we talk about solutions to the problem of Mortal Kombat, I want to just talk about the NRS side of the problem. I want to identify the problem, and then we'll talk about solutions.
Yeah.
So there are two core issues here. NetherRealm Studios, the reason why the games have been so watered down since MK11 and so bare bones and so simplistic, and why you don't see much power outside of maybe a couple of characters, and even those characters are very linear, there's no deviation from how they have to play, is because NRS is afraid of making a broken game, quote unquote, broken game. So things are very simplistic, they're easy to figure out within a week, and they'll never change because there's only one route to do them, and why power is very scarcely distributed. They don't want characters having multiple ways to also use powerful tools. They want it to be a straight line, which is very simple, very bland gameplay. They are, for a lack of better words, afraid of making a quote-unquote broken game. If the fans of Mortal Kombat were to vote on a poll, the best Mortal Kombat games in the NRS era, not for money, just gameplay, they, not, sales-wise, MK9 and MKX would win by a landslide over 11-1. But NRS looks at these games and they say, well, our problem is these games are broken. They believe that a weakness of theirs is our problem is we designed moves that are too powerful. And a core problem is they took a strength of theirs, knowing how to give powerful moves, and they thought it was a weakness. Giving a powerful move, NRS is great at. The broken part of it is you then have to apply common sense when assigning that power, which is where NRS was lacking, not in, were we giving moves that are too powerful? So a great example is an armored launcher. It is a extremely powerful move. I don't mean an armored move that knocks back and then the assist launches.
Yeah.
I mean a move where the armor move hits and you are launched. That is an extremely powerful tool. It is not broken, though. However, if you say, you know what, I'll make the armored move overhead. Oh, and by the way, this character also has an armored low, so when they're knocked down, they're doing 50-50s on wake up with how they're going to get up, with one of them being a launcher. And let's make this armored overhead launcher, let's make it -12 with a lot of pushback, so only a Jedi can punish it consistently, and even they might miss it sometimes. That then makes the move broken because it is powerful, and then you combine it with another, make it a 50-50 scenario in some instances, make it extremely safe, although quote-unquote technically punishable. If you just took a move like that and just said, you know what, it's not a part of a 50-50 scenario, you just, if it's blocked, there's no pushback, it's -20. It is a powerful move that is not broken. NRS has lacked the common sense part of it. They have identified, though, the problem is we just give too much power, not realizing the problem has been, and the scenario I mentioned actually did exist in an NRS game. They don't realize that they then don't assign now that we have this powerful move, let's apply some common sense to it. That's where they've been lacking. If you have any opinion on that, but I think that's one of the problems. They just don't realize that they're taking a strength and making it think it's a problem to avoid.
Yeah.
When the real thing is they're lacking the common sense part.
Yeah, I think that it's very evident that the people at NRS don't really understand how to balance fighting games. I think they look at a bunch of things and they're like, oh, this looks cool and this looks cool, and so they kind of throw it together. And sometimes things are not broken, and sometimes things are too powerful, and sometimes they're just outright busted. And then the problem is that because they don't understand what they've done, they listen to the community feedback and they're like, okay, well, we'll just strip all of this stuff away, and so that problem will no longer exist. And that then creates another problem because it's like, well, you've made it boring now. And I understand that game design is very complex, and I've dabbled in it before, so I get why it can be difficult. But at the end of the day, if you're putting out a game that's supposed to be a AAA competitive fighting game, and they do sell this to you like it's a competitive fighting game, otherwise it wouldn't have its own pro competition, it wouldn't be at EVO, they wouldn't do the combat cast in the fashion they do, because that's clearly geared towards the more competitive hardcore crowd. You can see from the views on combat cast versus the views in the trailers. Then you need to get people on your team that understand how game balance works. You can even get people that play fighting games on a regular basis to draw comparisons. The problem that I think the Mortal Kombat players have is that they seem to attribute Mortal Kombat's lack of complexity to its identity, which is really silly because any game can be stripped away. That has nothing to do with identity though. Mortal Kombat's identity is not tied to whether moves are broken or not. So moves that are like they have too many applications, you all you have to do is balance it. Like if you, in your example, what you're saying, if you give it armor and it's an overhead and it's safe, and it's like, okay, well, you've given it too much now. If it's an armored launcher, why is it also safe? There should be risk and reward.
Well, it's quote unquote technically unsafe, but pushback and -12. So 90% of the cast is never going to be able to punish it anymore.
Yeah, so essentially it ends up becoming a safe move and maybe hiding behind the guise that it says -12, which is not, it's useless basically. There's no point in them even telling us that. Then what they need to do is they need to look at the damage that a move does, look at how people access it and its applications, and then look at the risk factor of it. Okay, I land this knee. This knee's going to launch this person. It's also got armor on it. The character launching, let's say it's General Shao, for example. He launches you. He's going to get 40% from this with a low execution combo. Okay, cool. Let's make it unsafe then, so that if he does this and he guesses wrong, he gets launched. But in Mortal Kombat, the risk-reward factor is all over the place. Like some moves, it's there, and you're like, okay, cool, that makes sense. And there's some moves, it's like, why did you do that? And then you end up getting this situation where people are just spamming this nonsense, and it becomes frustrating. And one of the main problems that Mortal Kombat has is that it's extremely frustrating. And the frustration that you find in Mortal Kombat is completely different to the frustration that you find in Tekken and Street Fighter. Because when I'm playing Street Fighter and Tekken, I get frustrated and I lose. But I always look at it, I'm like, okay, I could have done this and I could have done that. But I'm still a little bit annoyed that I lost. But when you go to Mortal Kombat and you look at certain things, you're like, there was nothing I could have done. And so the frustration is different.
Yes. And to your point about the identity being it's simple. We hear that a lot, right? Oh, we know it's simple for casuals, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's something I want to, that's problem number 2. NRS does not realize that they're in a different era of gaming. One of the main reasons, again, why the game is so stripped down and watered down is if we make it too advanced, the casual player will be turned off by it. They're not going to understand what's going on. They're not going to understand how to apply these tools or how to get out of it when they're done to them. And this is kind of their thought process. And I want to play a clip very quickly. You've heard it. And then I want to come back and talk. It's a clip from a friend of mine, Rax. He does ARPG games. Some of you guys who watch him may know this. But I saw this video and I thought this is NRS. So let me go ahead and roll the clip very quickly.
Yeah.
Some gaming devs correlate not having a lot of time to playing a game to being a stupid person. Just because somebody is casual and doesn't spend a lot of time playing a game doesn't make them stupid.
So when I saw this, I thought immediately this is NRS, where here's a development studio who correlates being casual and or not having a lot of time to playing the game to being stupid. So if you put these other things in these games, that it makes it more advanced and all these possibilities now, they're going to be turned off by it. And Mortal Kombat, their formula has been the simpler the better. But fighting games have changed. The entry level of an average fighting game player today is significantly higher than the entry level years ago when the simplistic formula of Mortal Kombat was created. But they have not changed their design philosophy to match how players are today. Even if you've never played a fighting game, the information, access to this as to why things are happening to you and what you can do about it, etc., is is right there. People can buy the game, play it online against people constantly. So it's much easier to learn, to get into. Players have a much, they come in at a much higher entry level than ever before. NRS is still like, no, because they're casual, they correlate to their stupid and these things will turn them off. Those are the two biggest issues. The one about they think that things are too powerful, but I do feel like they do look at it like casual, not a lot of time to play, correlate that to they're just not smart enough to deal with this kind of stuff, and it will turn them off.
Yeah, I think that that game design philosophy is something that's become very prevalent in the West. You don't see it as much in Japanese games. I think Japanese developers understand that you can make things easy on the surface. Like, for example, Tekken is very easy to just pick up and play because you can button mash, you've got the simple controls, characters move very fluidly. But then they also understand that the staying power is in making the game complex and giving people options and making it so people need to come back to learn to get to the next level. Problem with NRS is that they want to cater to the casuals, fine, whatever. But they, like your friend said, like being a casual does not mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you don't want to learn more. It just means that you don't want to become a professional player. You want to sit in your bedroom. But people that want to sit in their bedroom still want to get good. I don't particularly want to compete anymore. But I want to get good at the games. And so I'll turn to a game like Street Fighter. I'll turn to a game like Tekken. Because I know it offers me layers to indulge in. Mortal Kombat doesn't. I'm still able to do every single difficult combo with Shao Kahn on Mortal Kombat 1. Every single difficult setup. I can pick a cameo and learn them in 2 seconds. I literally turned it on the other day to do the video of the breakdown I was doing of showing people moves and that. I dropped one combo once, and that's because I literally couldn't remember it. As soon as I remembered it, it was like that. It's a piece of piss, and my problem is that you can make combos easy, that's fine, but there's nothing else. There's nothing else really going on. There's no nuance to the game. So I think that is directly attributed to the fact that the guys over at NRS, and you've mentioned this before, and somebody mentioned it in my comments section, they don't actually understand how to build complex games because they're still working off the framework of the 2D digital games. And those games were very broken, and they were also simplistic, but because of the way games were back then, I guess inputs were much harder, and so they were difficult to play because of that. But they haven't evolved past then. Mortal Kombat still operates like it did in the 3D games, it's just on a 2D playing field now. MK games don't really change that much. I think MKX was really lightning in a bottle, but outside of that, it's very clear that NRS does not understand very basic things that exist in all other fighting games. I don't really know how many more examples I can really give because I gave quite a few in my video, but there's universal rules in fighting games, and then each of these fighting games have their own identities whilst existing within those basic rules, but MK just exists outside of them, and then people in the scene are like, oh yeah, but this is just an MK thing, and that's just a cop-out to me.
Yeah, and that design philosophy, the two things we talked about there, that has to change before anything we suggest could even be implemented. Otherwise, it will never be implemented as long as they don't realize that the way they've been doing things currently is the wrong way. And you touched on counter hits. We talked about it briefly in the other video, and you talked about it to start here. I feel like that is a huge thing for Mortal Kombat, and I'm going to give some other examples as well. You mentioned strings. So I'm going to give you an example. Sub-Zero has a string forward 1, 2, 3. I have no idea why there's a gap in it, but let's take the gap out. The string is just a knockdown. It does like 5% the last hit, and it's full combo punishable on block. Now,
Yeah.
if you say you don't want to respect my stagger and you want to mash, now it's not, well, so what? It's a knockdown. Now that kick hits, and let's say Sub-Zero's recovery is instant, and he can juggle off that, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a little higher of a bounce, and he a launch, and he can juggle off of that, right? Now it is, it's no longer, well, I don't care about that move, because as it is right now, you can mash, get hit by it 10 times in a row, block it once, and you got all the life right back, right? It In strings, when people don't want to respect stagger scenarios, there is a penalty for that when there's a counter hit. Now more stuff is guaranteed. How many strings in Tekken? Like if you do like Brian's, forgot the name of the string. You know, the second spin fist will counter hit you
Yeah.
if you're going to try to mash in those situations, right? And Mortal Kombat just doesn't have anything like that, or even something as simple as a down one. I want to explain this in detail here
God, the
because you
down
brought
one.
this up. Yeah, Mortal Kombat has these scenarios, especially currently, and we've all had this happen. Somebody does something, a move or a string, and let's say they recover at like -3, and you go to start something or throw, you do go to do a mid, and what do? Mash down one,
Yeah.
right? And if you go to throw, it'll beat it. If you do a mid, most of the mids aren't super fast in this game, so unless you have a really fast mid, 7 frame down one on a situation that's -3, it's going to come out in 10 frames. So very few mids even beat that out. So what do back? You down one. They don't care about that down one. This is why people will do like a 2-hit string or something, stop it early to your most risky yet least rewarding option. And imagine if something like a down one on counter hit, you could do like a down one into a special.
Yeah.
And some characters, if you had a safe special, it probably wouldn't be a combo starter if NRS was smart, you know. But some characters could maybe take a little risk and assume the down one's going to hit and do something, a special that might be a combo starter, right? And it opens up a layer of depth. It gets rid of that. I don't care about this. Another layer, or like you said, whiff punishing, right? A character that's a good whiff punisher now opens up more possibilities. Every character can whiff punish, but why this character is better is also there's a counter hit mechanic. So now they get these type of things on these whiff punishes. There are so many examples on how counter hits add significant amount of depth to the game.
Yeah.
And I think Mortal Kombat needs to really go that route. It could be even something as simple as some characters could have a counter hit sweep, right? That do something, or Scorpion Spear. I was his spear spin. I was thinking what you were saying. Like maybe it does like a low launcher, and then Scorpion can get a spear, right? But maybe it has to be like an EX spear only. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not for free. Maybe speed the EX spear up a little bit, so only that will combo. And it just kind of gives like, so if I'm going to do something into that and you want to mash, well, now it's a counter hit, and now it's going to give me other opportunities. Or like a counter hit spear, it gives him that flame, and then he has more time to do more. And I think there's so many applications to applying counter hits in Mortal Kombat. So I agree 100%. I think every game but MK, I would say every fighting game but Mortal Kombat has a counter hit mechanic. What's
Yeah.
strange is in regular Mortal Kombat 3, there were some instances of counter hits, like Liu Kang, if he got a counter hit bike kick, he could run in, and then you couldn't block his chain combo. They nerfed that in the UMK3 to where you can block the combo now, but it was accidental. Even some of the older games had instances of a counter hit that would do something, even though it wasn't even intentionally done. And now they can intentionally do this and make counter hit mechanics, and yet there are none.
Yeah. I think that counter hits also train players to be better. So the one thing I've noticed is that it's very easy for people that play Tekken to pick up Mortal Kombat and understand it very, very quickly because it's so watered down, or even Street Fighter or Guilty Gear, because there's not a lot going on. But with Mortal Kombat players, when they transition to Tekken, they have a much harder time, and it's not so much that that's shade on them, it's just the nature of the game. In Mortal Kombat, you can get away with mashing because there's less consequences. In games that have counter hits, you become afraid to mash because if you keep on mashing and it's not actually your turn, you're just going to keep on getting counter hit and you're going to die much quicker. That consequence does not exist in Mortal Kombat, so it incentivizes players to basically turn their brains off and hope for the best. And the worst part about that is that hoping for the best in Mortal Kombat sometimes actually works out for the best because there is no counter hit to really punish the player. Like an example of this is I use Feng Wei in Tekken 8. And if I am plus on block and I go into forward Kempo and I press 4, Feng Wei kicks you in your legs. On a normal hit, it will just kick you and Feng will be, he'll be plus on block, but it won't be he can't get a combo from it. But if you are mashing and the Feng does that, you fall onto the ground and he gets a free shoulder which goes into heat, which starts his heat mechanic, which Feng's is already very powerful. And suddenly the player is they're in a dire situation where they can now die. The next hit could potentially kill them. But with Mortal Kombat, those consequences don't exist, and so you get a lot of people mashing down one, mashing it after a move, stealing turns. Turn stealing is a big problem in Mortal Kombat.
Because there's no consequence for trying to turn steal.
Yeah, there's no consequence. Whereas if you included counter hits into the game, and someone's mashing down one, and you know that's coming, and you counter hit them, and they now go from eating 30% to maybe 39%, they're gonna suddenly be like, okay, I better stop doing this because I'm just gonna die in 2 hits. So it creates a very juvenile player base. Like the player base just doesn't get how to behave in like other fighting games where if you go from Street Fighter to Tekken, you understand, oh, I shouldn't mash it because I'm going to get counter hit. If you go from Guilty Gear to, I don't know, like even Tekken or BlazBlue or Grand Blue, or any of these games, even some arena fighters, you understand, I probably shouldn't mash it because I'm going to get counter hit, I'm going to die. But that just doesn't exist in Mortal Kombat, and that's not an identity thing, that's just NRS are being lazy.
Yep, I agree. And another mechanic you brought up that I agree on is throws. And you made such a great point about this that in 2D fighters, MK kind of walks in between both worlds here because in 2D fighters, throws normally you can't duck a standard throw, but in Mortal Kombat you can.
Yeah.
So for one, they already have the ability to duck under them, which is very strange for a 2D game. But then it's a competitive fighting game. It should be based off skill. Now, obviously, there are guessing situations still.
Yeah.
But the throw mechanic also opens up to just a random guess factor. Because, for one, you have to make the guess. You have to make the read that the throw is coming. And then even if you do, in general, making a read that a throw is coming and trying to tech a throw and you are mistaken on tech throw you, or
Tom, you
get
cut out
jabbed
there for a second. Just go back to what you're saying about guessing.
What I said was, there are situations in which, when it comes to throws, that, there are skill-based mechanics and then there's just a random guessing mechanic, right? So if you go to tech a throw in Mortal Kombat, even if you make the right read and go to tech, there's still a chance that you might still be thrown. Now, sometimes in trying to make the read for a throw, if someone does like a quick jab string or something like that, you might be mistaken for a throw and get comboed for it, right? In Mortal Kombat, though, you still assume that risk. And I assumed that risk, but I knew the throw was coming and I got the throw, I made the right read, you get thrown anyway.
Yeah.
Because, and I understand there's certain mind games, like if you're in the corner, they might want to throw you out of it, or keep you thrown in it, so you would tech toward the corner, and if they throw you out, well, hey, you're out of the corner. But imagine losing a round or the match off of that, and you can't survive the throw, and you go to tech it, and it's a complete guess. It's a skill-based, it's a game, it's a competitive game. Why you would introduce that type of a luck factor or random guess factor in something as simple as teching a throw? And Injustice even had one button throw tech.
Yep, Injustice actually got it right. I
did.
cannot understand that. It's the same developer. It's the exact same guys. They managed to nail it in Injustice. When I saw it in Injustice, I was like, okay, these guys have learned from their mistakes. This is fantastic. And then they went backwards, and I was like, and then someone said to me, yeah, it's a Mortal Kombat thing. I was like, I'll just shut up.
Yeah, and one time even Paulo Garcia, the lead designer, said in MK9, I have never seen throws be a problem. But again, as the competitive scene is growing, you want to get as much as the random factor out of the game. And I'm not saying throws are you got random out by throws. My point is that the match on the line, you go to tech the throw, and you got thrown anyway because you guessed about the throw, you made the read, but then you guessed wrong on the direction. It just makes you feel robbed.
Yeah.
And not like, oh, this guy in the end, he just clutched it out. And I just feel like things like that, they need to get rid of in the game.
Yeah, I think people are giving throws a pass in MK1 because they were even worse than MK11. Because MK11 had escape fail, so if you now guess wrong in MK11, you might lose 30%, which was absolutely absurd. I couldn't believe they did that. But that doesn't give MK1 or any other Mortal Kombat game a pass. At the end of the day, yes, throws are in and of themselves a guess. When people are going for a throw, you're guessing between strike and throw in any game. And yes, even in Tekken, there's characters like King where they get you in chain grabs and you have to guess. But that's King's gimmick, and that's a gimmick of a chain grab. I have less of a problem with that, even though it's annoying. We understand the mechanics of a chain grab. But the initial grab, if you're not going to have visual indicators, because I showed in my video, Scorpion grabs with the same arm twice. And I'm like, in a 2D fighting game, it shouldn't be a visual indicator. It should be a one-button tech. That is universal for every 2D fighting game. Even the 2.5D ones, like the Budokai games, they have a one-button tech. Even Smash Brothers, the game that we can't even agree on it being a fighting game, manages to get the idea down correctly. But for whatever reason, Mortal Kombat doesn't. And then you'll have some people saying, oh, if they change it to one-button tech, that will completely destroy the game plan of characters like Liu Kang and Kung Lao. And I'm just like, what planet are you living on? Why would that destroy their game plan? That makes no sense. It's a universal change that will benefit the players. It helps the players. It's not about the characters. The game should not be luck based. There should be an element of luck, obviously, in grabs, because if you have a character that chain grabs, I understand that you have to now guess when the second sequence begins, but the initial grab should not be completely random.
I agree, and I think that kind of stuff should just come out of the game. I mean, the formula is there for them to copy, and I think the goal should be to make it as skill based as possible, and remove like little like quirky little like random guess factors like that.
No, but do you know what I would really want to ask them? I would really, really love to ask them to their faces or over a video call, why did you decide to do it in Injustice, and what is the justification for doing it like this in Mortal Kombat? If they can give me some sort of justification that makes sense, then fine. I can't imagine a reality where they could. I can bet any money they're just going to say, they're going to shrug their shoulders. They're not going to even know why they did it. Maybe it's a flip stance thing where they're too lazy to remove it. It's just a part of Mortal Kombat, so we're not going to change it. But the fact that they got it right in Injustice, the fact that even the tech window was good in Injustice, you can see someone go for a grab and you can tech it, but it wasn't so slow that a person couldn't get their grab off.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes no sense. They understand how to do it, and then they went backwards. They went back to a design philosophy that makes no sense. It would only make sense if this game did not have a pro competition, was not marketed towards hardcore players and only casuals. But they put both feet in both pools, and so I'm just like, if Tekken and Street Fighter can market it to casuals and still have a hardcore player base, and Mortal Kombat is considered one of the big three, and it's supposed to exist in that realm with those other two games, why did they do this?
Exactly, I would agree. And another point you brought up is, and you talked about this many times, fireballs. How there's no clashing, and you gave many examples on video. This is a standard in each other, which fireball wars in Mortal Kombat have always been, well, you can't zone because their fireball might do more damage and be faster, so you're just going to lose that war projectile for projectile. You can't even use it to gain ground while canceling out their fireball, which we see in games like Street Fighter. Even though their fireball is better, you can still advance and cancel their fireball out as you're advancing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in Mortal Kombat, you cannot. You just can't fire back because you're just going to constantly lose that trade. It also makes end of the rounds very anticlimactic because they pass through each other. I don't know. I guess as an MK person, you just kind of accept this. It's always been that way. I believe this goes back to a philosophy in the arcade in which you just want the match over quickly and more quarters to be pumped in, right? Because that's how you're going to make, the more money you make an arcade vendor, the more your stuff is going to sell. So they were just looking at it like, get the game over with, next player up, etc. Fireballs are going to do this. I think in the modern era, I don't know if clashing but I think something should change about them. I do think that they need to rework their fireball mechanic. It shouldn't just be like a zoning war like MK9 is two people spamming projectiles at each other at light speed. Like two dead shots in Injustice 2 before they nerfed him, both of them just spamming projectiles on each other. It was not as strategic as an actual fireball war.
Yeah.
You have your own thoughts about it. I do think something should change. I think either they should clash or they think of a kind of more interesting thing to where they can kind of keep some of the Mortal Kombat stuff, but also introduce a new system in which there is a lot of strategy that's called for as well.
Yeah, I think that there's an opportunity to do something greater with Mortal Kombat Fireballs than any other fighting game, because the characters in the game have like supernatural abilities and they use fireballs in very different ways to they do in Street Fighter and King of Fighters. And I think that if it's a low fireball, then I can understand if a high fireball goes over it, that's fine. Ryu and Sagat have been doing that for years. I think that If it's a fireball that appears beneath someone's feet, then I completely understand why that one wouldn't really have many clash properties. But there's so many quirky fireballs in Mortal Kombat that you can add so many applications to. Like if we even go back to MK11, you had someone like Cetrion, which was known as a zoning character, had loads of different fireballs. Each of those fireballs could have had their own properties. Like the boulder, for example, could have taken up 2 hits. So if you were using Noob Saibot, then the boulder could suck up a hit from Noob Saibot's Ghost Ball, and so you would have to meter burn. You would have to use meter to be on par with Cetrion. That would validate her as a zoner because she doesn't have to use her meter to be good at full screen, and it would make it so the Noob Saibot player is not completely defenseless. But what happened in MK11 and what is also happening in MK1 is the character of the better fireball forces the other character to start jumping around or trying to just walk in slowly whilst they're taking chip damage, and then the problem with MK is that the characters with good fireballs in MK1 are pretty good at like controlling the air as well, like Liu Kang. And so you try to jump at him, you start shooting fireballs at you there, and there's no block button in the air. And then you edge closer to him on the ground, you're taking loads of chip. By the time you get in on him, he's already got his cameo back, and it turns into this whole like kerfuffle that you have to deal with, and it's frustrating. Whereas they could have made it where Liu Kang has to employ some strategy because he has a low fireball that's a little bit slower but has a good block advantage, and he's got a high fireball that's much faster, maybe doesn't have as much block advantage. And they just completely miss the ball, and you have this situation like I was showing on camera where like Quan Chi and Baraka are shooting each other, but Baraka has more health, so Quan Chi has to yield, or he has to use his EX skull, which does eat up fireballs, which is fine, but then Baraka doesn't really have an opportunity to answer back, and so you're just missing out on this whole layer of depth that you can have in Fireball Wars. And you could probably get the best Fireball Wars out of Mortal Kombat because they have a lot of weird fireballs in the game. They've got fireballs that come from certain different angles. You've got Scorpion's Spear, which isn't exactly a fireball but still operates similarly. So it could have, maybe Scorpion's Spear could be very weak to fireballs and it loses to them, but you could add other applications to it, and that's where like counter hits come in as well, where if you're having a fireball war with somebody and you add applications to the spear, say for example Scorpio could jump and shoot the spear going downwards, directly downwards at someone, that could change the fireball war for the person that is shooting the fireballs over to you, because now Scorpion's got other properties because his spear doesn't clash the way other people's do. And there's loads of ideas that you could go with because there's so many different types in Mortal Kombat. So they completely miss an opportunity. And also what you were saying with closing out the round. I remember watching Street Fighter 4 and even Tekken 7 actually with Akuma and Geese. And they start shooting fireballs. And they've got 1 HP and it's like, oh my god, who's going to win the fireball war? In Mortal Kombat, it's like, oh, they shot a fireball. Whoever's got more health is going to take it now. And that's it. It's over. So it's just, it's missed opportunities.
You know, I look at it even from a perspective of Sub-Zero. I'm a Sub-Zero guy. They could speed up his ice ball so it's not super slow, since it wouldn't it probably wouldn't even freeze anymore, the regular ice ball, you know, or maybe it would, but it would be, if plasma clashes with it, you know what I mean, it doesn't have to be super slow. But then or even if it didn't freeze, that'd still be fine. And then the EX1 is extremely fast, you know, and eats your projectile and freezes you. So it's going to cost them a bar to do it. It's extremely fast, so obviously you could say, okay, I'm not going to shoot a fireball here and bait it out and come across the bar. But there's still a strategy and a mind game there that doesn't just okay, 2 fireballs come out, 1 trades, they both trade, you're frozen. It just removes so many of the mind games. But like you said, end of the round, end of the match, 2 fireballs get shot, whoever has the higher health, that's going to win.
Yeah, I'll give an example with Sub-Zero, that it's just so people understand that I'm not just complaining, that I actually have ideas that I wish they would implement. Sub-Zero is a character that freezes things, and I think a good way to show that expression through his character would be to freeze things. So if someone throws a fireball at you and Sub-Zero sees it coming, he can shoot his ice ball at it. It freezes their fireball, right? So it's not a thing where Sub-Zero's ones necessarily clash and they nullify each other. Sub-Zero can freeze it,
freeze it for a second, and then it comes,
and then like punch it back at them, or it becomes his fireball. Maybe it does a little less damage, so it's not overwhelming, but he gets control over the fireball, or his fireball could be a little bit slower, so it's not overwhelming. But when it touches things, it freezes them, and Sub-Zero gets control over them. They have all of these options. Yeah, they have all these things that they can do.
For example, like, what if like he freezes it, And if he does nothing, it just drops to the ground and
It
shatters.
just shatters. Yeah.
Or if he wants, depending on where he freezes it, if he wants to try to make up ground and punch it back to them, he can. There's so many little things they can do to be creative, which I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but it just, yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, with Mortal Kombat, because they use fire and ice, and Sindel's a banshee and all this stuff. Just focusing on Sub-Zero, he could even have a thing where he has like an ice wall that turns projectiles that people shoot at him into his own projectiles. Maybe they do a little less damage, but now he can fire them off at you. You know, kind of like in the Mortal Kombat film where he had that wall of ice and then he would shoot projectiles off, and it was like raining projectiles. You could do something like that where you steal people's moves with Sub-Zero because he has ice powers. Or if you have an interaction with Sub-Zero and Scorpion, you could add a layer of depth to that as well, where Scorpion's had a fireball as well in MKX. If they brought that fireball back, because fire melts ice, if it's of the same property, so they both don't EX it, they just throw their fireballs, maybe Sub-Zero has less time to get over to the fireball because it's going to melt it. And so if you're fighting like Liu Kang, you've got 3 seconds to get over and turn it into your fireball and you can punch it back. But if you're fighting Scorpion, you've got 1 second. There's loads of things that you could do and you could test out to see if it becomes fun or if it works in the competitive scene. But instead they just have them pass through each other. It's like a piece of ice is literally passing through a piece of fire and there's no interaction. It's just boring. It's devoid of life.
No, and like I said, I don't know what the right answer is per se, but I do know that it's something they should look at, and they have a good opportunity here to really redo this system in some way. And
They should call me into the office. I guarantee you I'll make a better fireball system than they ever will. I guarantee you. They're just not using their brains. They're so lazy. They're so unbelievably lazy.
yeah, that's true. Which brings me to my next point: universal mechanics. So I have a big pet peeve with how MK does some universal mechanics. So universal mechanics are important. I'm going to bring uplock into this.
Hmm.
Uplock, I love the application of certain overheads are safe, like Raiden's overhead, but or smokes low into the overhead. But if you uplock it, you now can punish them with a full combo. I love that application. I do not like it dealing with jumping. And I know people are like, oh, Tom, you want people to jump in for free? Believe me, I especially do not. But I would like to see, so I would much rather see characters deal with things individually at times rather than universally. To me, uplock is such a lazy anti-air thing. So the way anti-airs work in other fighting games is people still jump. Why? Because when the jump is not expected, you don't a lot of times react fast enough to get your anti-air out, right? In Mortal Kombat, it's just up and block. So now there is always going to be some type of scrubby interaction off a jump in. You're always going to react to it because all you have to do is hit up and block. And the mind game is always across the board. Is he going to up block? Or is he going to not up block? Or is the guy going to jump in with an attack? Or is he going to try to bait out the up block? In which case he's not going to jump in with an attack. And then I can maybe anti-air that, etc. I think a universal mechanic shouldn't govern that.
Yeah.
They should give characters tool to deal with this differently. Be it an anti-air jab. Not everyone's going to have a good anti-air jab. I got it. Some characters could use an armor move that could launch. Again, common sense with these moves in NetherRealm. They could do it, or they could have certain moves like Cyrex's air throw had airborne immunity. So as long as your character is considered airborne, you can do certain moves that have immunity to airborne opponents. There are all kind of creative ways they can do it. No, I get it. Well, Tom, they made uplock because people were jumping in for free in MK11. That's because characters' individual anti-airs were not very good. They need to individually make sure that characters have tools to deal with these things so that they do it in a different manner. And I'm not saying nobody should ever jump, but if it's unexpected, I know right now if I jump in MK1, even if it's unexpected, it doesn't matter. They're just going to play the upblock meta. And it's like, you didn't expect me to do this, but it doesn't matter. That mind game is always present because of the ease of use of the mechanic. I would like to see them apply the mechanic universally where it's okay defensively, like these overheads that you can make a read and punish them with some consequence behind if they bait that. but I don't like it as a jumping mechanic. I would much rather them realize that characters should shine individually in certain areas as opposed to making a blanket mechanic that governs all things for all characters in all situations.
Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, you pretty much nailed it. Um, it's it's just it comes down to lazy design for me. I don't know what the development cycle is. I know you did that really good video of breaking down how they do things, but I'm not really sure what they're doing at the offices. I don't know if it's down to funding or they just don't know what they're doing. But when I look at Mortal Kombat, the universal mechanics in the game just it's like I don't know how to word it, but you know in Mortal Kombat 11 jumping was a problem. And so their answer to it was just, here's just this up block. Here's this up block thing. It was just like, there was nothing else you could have done. I'm not even necessarily shitting on up block. It's not that I have a problem with it. It's just, it seems very lazy and boring to go from one game to another after 5 years. And that's really the only change that was made. It does feel very MK11-ish to me. I don't know if it does to you, but it doesn't feel like a massive jump.
No, it just feels like this is the simplest solution. Rather than taking our times individually, character by character, we're just going to say everyone does this, and it's just a lazy solution. And I like the ways to punish some of the overheads. I just don't like it to applying to the jump-ins. And I know people are going to say, "Oh, you want people jumping in for free? We don't want to get jumped in on." This is why you make sure characters' individual tools are good for these situations, so that they can anti-air consistently if they make the read and react to it in time. Not, I didn't read it, I didn't really even react to it, but because it's only up block, I can react to it last second and do it every single time. And this mind game is always there for every character across the board. I feel like they need to start doing more character individuality. And if you watch, for example, and I'm going to get into a few other takes as well. I feel like they need to, another pet peeve of mine is they need to separate the way they need to give characters more options. Like Raiden is a very one-dimensional, like it's just a straight line, he's going to do low hits, combo, block, storm cell, or poke in a storm cell, call assist, jail into next poke or throw. And then of course you can stagger because people are always trying to flawless block because they want to either flawless block the hit before storm cell or the first hit of storm cell. They don't actually want to have to flawless block in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But this is a straight line for every single Raiden. And if you deviate in any way, you are playing the character wrong. If you play, it's the same thing with the cameos in this game. Unless you play one way, this way with this cameo, you're playing the character wrong. It's not like, oh, have you seen this guy's style with this? Nope, he's just playing it wrong. It's not going to work.
Yeah, there's no clear expression.
I watched Combat vs. Ninja Killer, Raiden vs. Raiden in the Pro Series. Look, it looked identical. I wouldn't be able to tell who was who. In MK11, when you watched the Grand Finals, Fujin Mirror, if you took the names away, you wouldn't know who was who. In Mortal Kombat, even this is something they had in previous MK games. If you watched My Sub-Zero or Denzel's, you would know exactly who was who. If you watch one person's Liu Kang or another's, even DJT and MIT, they're brothers, but if they both played the same character, there'd be a significant difference in how they're played, yet both equally effective. And that's because of the straight line where a character can only do this and nothing else, and there's an easy way to do it. I would love to see them open up the toolbox for characters, and counter hits are one way to do things. I would also like them to not be afraid to be, armor launchers, things like that. They're not a bad thing as long as you balance them,
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed, like some character has a crappy anti-air, but they have an armored launcher, something like that. But then a lot of their other tools are also extremely weak. You know what I mean? To also balance that out because they do have powerful tools.
Characters need to have purpose. That's the problem.
They do. I would like to see them expand what characters can do. I got it. Johnny Cage, I would like to see, at least before they nerfed him, I would love to see him have done more than 1-1-1-1-1-1, stand 2, here comes knee into stagger or knee into assist or full string into assist. It's still my turn. I would have loved to see him to be able to do a little more than just that. I mean, is that the only route that he could possibly go? That's all they thought about when it comes to pressure? That's the only thing they could think of was 1-1-1-1-1-1 when's the knee coming?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would like to see. I don't know if you saw my video. I was very discouraged in like Sub-Zero and Scorpion are, in my opinion, the soul of Mortal Kombat. Like
Yeah.
you have a fire supernatural ninja and then an ice ninja, right?
It's Ryu and Ken. They're the Ryu and
But
Ken
they,
of the
you know,
game.
Mortal Kombat is, these supernatural. Everyone's talked about it, right? These
Yeah.
supernatural beings are so cool. And then I put that clip where the Sub-Zero player in South America had the Scorpion player in the corner. It's an assist game. You're Sub-Zero. You have the guy in the corner, and all he could do was poke, poke,
Yeah, I saw
poke, poke.
that.
Yeah. And I'm like, there was nothing else. Well, Tom, you just want a clone. Okay, they couldn't give him anything else. Get rid of the clone. Give him Aisha. Anything.
Yeah.
Anything else. Scorpion. And all he could do is poke in his spear spin, string in his spear spin, assist, then throw or poke again. That's the only option. I would love to see them expand how characters do things. There are so many things they could do.
The thing is, yeah, is that Mortal Kombat is, like you said, a supernatural game, right? They've got supernatural abilities. And just off the top of my head, if you look at Grand Blue, they've got cooldown moves, don't they? Where you can do certain attacks and then things will cool down over time. And there's other games that have that as well. I don't know why Mortal Kombat doesn't really use that feature. Because they've got characters like Sub-Zero.
They do. Clone, and its cooldown is 1,000,000 seconds.
Yeah, even Clone, like even if you forget about Clone, Sub-Zero is an ice character. There's so many things you can do. I mean, he can literally, you could have the character construct certain items that work in better places on the stage. So you could, I mean, he's had an ice sword before. In the corner, maybe he decides to build himself a spear or something. Like, you should make it so the characters have strengths at different points in the stages, that you express what they're doing. I mean, when I look at an ice character versus a fire character are usually
They cut out again. I think Discord is actually bugged because it did it for you with me too. Also, I think it's a Discord issue.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
Because it's showing on my recording sometimes. So go ahead and say that again, just in case it cut out on my recording.
so I think that they should have, I think on different parts of the stages, characters should be able to express themselves differently. And obviously, there's characters that are going to excel in the corner, at full screen and mid screen. And someone like Sub-Zero, when I think of Sub-Zero, I think of a very methodical, slower character who wants to trap you, because ice characters freeze you in the ground. They freeze you in place to beat you up. And when I think of someone like Scorpion, who's a fire character, I'm thinking of something that's crazy and insane and there's just, chaos everywhere, like how they designed him in MKX with that Hellfire. And I think that they should lean into the gimmicks of the characters and not just homogenize everyone. So someone like Sub-Zero, I can imagine him being very difficult to deal with at the mid-screen, because you're dealing with someone that's slowing the pace down of the game. He's freezing things around the stage to make it hard for you to move around. And I imagine Scorpion is someone that is trying to just be in your face and punch you up and teleport behind you and throw you into the air. But they don't express the characters' personalities through the movesets. The cop-out answer would be, well, it's a new universe and he's no longer Hanzo, so he's not crazy anymore. And I'm like, well, then, I'm sorry, make him crazy. Like, turn Kuai Lang into a nutjob. Like, what do you want me to say? The story mode is good, but the story mode is not going to carry the game for the next 5 years. It's the gameplay. So the gameplay needs to come first, and then the story can come second. But what they've done is Hanzo Hasashi doesn't exist anymore. So the psychotic Scorpion that we've had for many years outside of Invasions is gone. So him being insane in his moveset, I guess, doesn't really make sense anymore. So
he wasn't insane in his moveset in MK11 either, though. So that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, well, they've watered down Mortal Kombat anyway. But if they were to go back to its roots and go back to what the characters used to be and then express it through the movesets, I think that they kind of nailed Scorpion's aesthetic in MKX. He had his ninjutsu stance where he was focused on his swords and mid-range. They had the Hellfire where he was just like resetting you constantly. You couldn't get him off you. And then you had Inferno where he was summoning Hellspawns. And it was perfect. I was like, right, they've nailed his personality. There's 3 good fighting styles here. Inferno was obviously weak, but the design was pretty good. And they could have expanded on that. But the problem now is that if they go back to variations, my worry with NRS is that they don't seem to understand that characters should have core moves that don't get removed, so that one moveset becomes superior to the other. They need to have core moves and then flesh them out so that one version is a grappler, one version is a zoner, one version is rushdown. But again, they don't understand that. I
I don't
really
even
don't
want to
think they
see
get
that
it.
because I don't want variations because I think variations should be gone. I don't think they can make that work. I would like to see, like, take Melina, for example. She has got so many, and when I say give these characters, open up the toolbox, these characters have so many tools that are not even in the game. Melina, they have invented these moves. Melina has her ethereal teleport. She's got that she doesn't have that in this game. That's gone now. She had some stuff that she had in Ravenous. That's not in this game either. Like some of her low throw or other moves that she had in Ravenous. That's not in here either. So they made moves that are just not uh, Reiko. I fail to believe that Reiko should be played by running away throwing ninja stars. That just doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to make him a grappler, then make him a grappler.
Yeah.
Have him come in and say, you know what? Command throw is mid. On counter hit, it does more damage. EX command throw on a counter hit is going to launch. That. So I can understand it. I wouldn't give it armor, but it has a purpose. You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I would. He has so many other moves that you could use to have him get at me. He had his, or maybe he shouldn't even be a grappler because he has his teleport and whatever. I think they could have, I don't know, given grappling to another character. But either way, these characters they all have moves that they've had before, and they could always bring these moves back. I don't understand why they don't. Scorpion's got minions that he can summon. He's got the Hellfire on himself. Got all these things he can do,
Yeah.
and none of that is in the game. Like none of it.
I think that
I
they really missed out on an opportunity to expand on what they did in the 3D games. So I'm not actually against variations. I'm just against how they've been implemented so far. I think in the 3D games they did a fantastic job of
fan switch.
like I think it's Deadly Alliance has 3 stances. I thought that's great because if
The
you
Alliance had 3. Yeah.
yeah, if you take the 3 stances, or even if you want to have 2 and you want to like centralize it a little bit more, but if you take it so that you can actually access both styles in the game and then differentiate each character, you suddenly create a game where there's so much to explore. So I could use Scorpion and I could favor one style but dip into another style every now and then, and you could use Sub-Zero and be a jack of all trades. And then the next Sub-Zero I fight is a master of maybe one style, and then it opens the game up to a lot more exploration. And they had that in the 3D games, even though the 3D games they left a lot to be desired. The design philosophy there made sense to me. I was like, okay, they're going in a direction where it's going to constantly expand now, and we're going to be able to constantly try new things. But they decide to water it down and break it up, and I don't understand why. It's like they understand, okay, we should do this, and then they hear a bit of negative feedback, and they're like, okay, let's take this all away and let's just start from scrap. And it's like, no, you're supposed to take the bad things away and amplify the good things, not start from scratch all the time.
Yeah, I would, and I agree. And like I said, these characters all have moves and tools that they could re-implement, right? And if you said one person could have one style or another, but I do think they need to open it up a little more. Again, it's not even like they have to create it from scratch. These moves all exist. Like you could literally have Kung Lao with low hat, orbiting hat, dive kick, teleport, some of the hat trick stuff, Z hat. Think of all these moves these characters have that they can pull from, right? To give them maybe one Kung Lao is really good at doing this or that, but all those to one traps you more, or one does. You know what I mean? It's I don't even want to say variations. Sub-Zero, one has an ice shower, one has an ice clone. I don't know. I mean, maybe variations if they can get it right, which I don't think they can. But I
Yeah,
do think that there should be an expanded move set, and also take into direction. You can do more than just 1, 2, 3, 4 forward one. You can do down forward, down back. You can add moves. You can add strings. They can do so much. It doesn't need to be as simplistic as it is. I would like to see them pull from, if it's a character, that character is going to be able to use anything they've ever used in MK history. Like you'll never play Brian and he doesn't have a mock breaker all of a sudden. No, they took that out. He doesn't have a mock punch anymore.
yeah.
Like no one does that. But Mortal Kombat does. I would like to see them put all the characters' tools that they've created over the years together into one character and think of how much freestyle you can have. You would never have the same experience twice playing the same, character. This guy does this guy does this guy abuses this guy abuses that. People are going to develop the character according to their style, and they're all going to use certain tools differently. Some tools may not be used frequently for one person, but they're used a lot on for another person. That and because it's all there, they need to pull from it. That's one of the biggest changes I would make is pull these ideas you've had that are good, and instead of ripping them away from the characters, give it all to them.
Yeah.
And there's so much you can do with that.
Yeah, I think this goes back to NRS insulting the intelligence of a casual player, or believing that casual means stupid, like your friend said. I think casual players are in large to thank for a lot of cool tech that you see online. A lot of cool things kind of pop up from people messing around and testing things out. It's not always pro players. More often than not, you'll find casual players on their YouTube channels, because I'm also a casual player, even though I delve into the complexities of games. I'm not a pro player, so I would be sitting in my room and I might discover something. Like, I discovered some tech on Soul Calibur 5 for Algo. I was really the only prominent UK Algo player, and I didn't start competing straight away. I was in my room doing things on my own, and I discovered a couple of things that people then started using as like a bog standard thing with Algo. And I think if they abandon the idea that casuals are stupid, because they're not, then they'll allow them to basically be like, okay, let's not worry about people not being able to play our game. What they need to worry about is not making execution difficult. It's not making the game simplistic. It's just making the game feel free and making it flow well. Because the criticism of Mortal Kombat is that it's very stiff. And that actually turns casuals off. When they go to Street Fighter and Tekken, they're like, oh, this moves very smoothly. I don't feel like my feet are in mud. That's something that they could work on to improve the player experience of the casual. But in terms of given the game longevity, the reason that Mortal Kombat games die out very quickly is that you learn everything in the first week, and they need to make
And
it
it
so
never
that
changes.
yeah, it never changes.
MKX did deviate from that. It wasn't the same thing. There are techs being invented constantly.
Yeah,
I think 9 and X were kind of maybe lightning in a bottle
yeah,
twice, and lightning doesn't strike in the same place 3 times. And I think MK is living proof of that.
yeah. And the thing is that they have models from the past that they can apply to the next game. If they get the right people in with the right minds that can look at it and be like, okay, we can take these things because they may have been broken, but we can tweak them, and we can remove these elements of it that people don't like, and then we can move forward. I also think that we've had MK9, X, 11, 1, Injustice 1, Injustice 2. That is 6 games in the current era, in the NRS era. 6 2D games. In my opinion, it's time to try something else. This is like, we're gonna go into the 7th game now. I've lost complete trust in them in building a coherent 2D fighter. I think maybe it's high time to get in people that understand how 3D fighting games work, reevaluate the things that did work in the 3D games, remove the things that didn't, and build a game where the characters are very expressive, where they can use the stage to their advantage. Like we're saying with Sub-Zero, he can freeze up part of the stage so that you have to maneuver where you're going. Use their abilities to differentiate from Tekken and from Virtua Fighter, so that it stands alone as both a game the casuals can enjoy and mess about with and do quirky things on, and something the pros can be like, okay, this is a respectable game where frame data makes sense, and I don't feel like I'm in a lose-lose situation constantly, and we can build a scene from this, and we'll wake up every day to new tech, and nobody has to shit on Mortal Kombat because nobody really wants to. We all grew up playing this game. It doesn't bring me joy to wake up every day and see some more dumb shit that they've done, but unfortunately the inmates are running the asylum, and I think they need to just go back to the drawing board and try something new. They shouldn't be afraid to get new people in that are going to say, okay, this is dog shit what you're doing, we need to do it this way.
Yeah, and another point I wanted to hit on, by the way, that I didn't want to go without mentioning this in the video, a change that you would make and I would make also, going back to just changing the overall feel of things, the game, like you're talking about, is changing the actual feel of it. If you look at a game like Tekken, characters feel powerful. The effects on things, the hits, the sound effects, when you smack somebody hard, the effect is that of somebody got smacked hard, and also the stage interaction. The stage is just almost like a cloth that was dropped down and spray painted, right? To I'm not saying that that's how graphically it looks, but that's about the same interaction.
Yeah.
I do like the branch hitting them in the face. I don't like the hopping out of the corner because then you have dumb matchups where, you know what I mean? Both are hopping back and forth. I don't like the hopping off of things, but I would like to see more of the branch being used, um, things like that. I would love to see some interaction like that. Again, I don't like people jumping off of things. I think you earned your corner position. Now you got to deal with their options, and they can jump out at the same time with invincibility frames. That's not a good idea, NRS.
Yeah.
But I would like to see some more stage interaction and the feel of the game. Powerful hits feel powerful. The effects look cool, and the music, especially the overall feel of the game, needs to change. NRS, I think, has been at one time, they would have these powerful looking moves and the screen would shake and all these cool effects, and now it's just a quick little like, slap, and it's like a devastating move, but it sounds the equivalent of like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
It's
It's
I
nowhere
don't
near
like
what
that
it
at
used to
all.
be at all. It's there's the one sound effect I do really like in MK1 that I'll give them credit for is there's one animation in particular that I always see and I'm like, I wish they'd do more of this, and it's when Scarlet does her when you do crushing what are they called, the super moves, fatal blows, and you know when she sort of brings you in and she pierces your chest, that
Yes.
impact and that sound is really cool, and the way they shot that, the way they shot the fatal blows, I actually think they were pretty cool. And that sort of impact and that sort of violence, I think, needs to be spread across the board with the moves in general, even in normal attacks. Like I was demonstrating General Shao, and how like he's got these stupid looking sweeps and a stupid looking kick. But when I look at General Shao, he kind of reminds me of Kane. Like he's got that sort of Kane build to him, and Kane was
Hmm.
always famous for his big boot. And when Kane hit you with it, or even Test, when Test with Kane or Undertaker would hit you with the big boot, it was like massive impact. And it would have been nice for them to transfer a little bit of that, because you can see in Tekken the WWE influencing King. When King pedigrees you or RKOs you, you feel it. Like he even goes into heat, so it's got an even bigger impact. And I feel like they just missed an opportunity completely with making characters really stand out. Like even General Shao's design is reminiscent of Steppenwolf, and the example that I gave in the video was in Dragon Ball Z, one of Frieza's standout designs is his tail, and they emphasized how dangerous Frieza's tail is in the show by showing him wrap it around Vegeta like a snake and using it to block attacks and attack people, and it was a really big deal when they chopped it off. And they did the same thing with the Saiyans when they were turned into great apes. And so I think those things are really cool because they're unique to certain characters, and it gives that part of their body its own personality, its own characteristic. And they designed this version of General Shao to look completely different from the torso up, but then didn't utilize anything. And I was just a bit like, what was the point? Why did you do that? It's just because this was meant to be, in my opinion, it was meant to be Injustice 3, and you did a switch at the last minute, and that's why he looks like that. Otherwise, what was the point in giving him horns?
Yeah, yeah, he could have almost like a there was a character in Dead or Alive, Bass, that had like a buffalo horn where he would go in and launch, you know? They
Yeah,
could have given him a move like that or something like that, where a non-EX just kind of gorges you, but as an EX it launches all the way up in the air. Like there's just so many cool things they could do with that. They gave him horns, but you don't even notice unless you pay close attention because they play no part of the match whatsoever.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I would agree to that 100%.
Even
And
his axe, in the end of the
mhm.
round, he sort of throws it and it comes back like Thor's hammer. And I'm like, why didn't you do that in the game? Why can't I throw my axe at somebody and I call it back like Thor's
Pull
hammer?
it back. Hmm.
Like in God of War, when Kratos throws the axe and it comes back, it has that really cool delay and then hit into his hand. It sounds impactful, like the axe made a loud sound when Kratos grabbed it. And I'm like, well, you could do that with Shao Kahn, or you could do a thing where this goes back to counter hits. Where say I throw the axe on a normal hit, it just hits them normally. I can call it back. Let's say that I counter hit, the axe gets stuck inside them. I can call the axe back with their body latched onto it and start a full combo. Like, it's just little things like that where I'm sitting there looking at the characters thinking, I can think of 100 cool things to do here. What were they thinking at NRS?
Yeah, it goes back to what I thought when I talked to you about this with Shao and MK11 when the game first released, and I was like, who decided to make Shao Kahn a character that does sweep, 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 sweep?
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't believe that. That
Just
put
like,
me off it. Like, that's why I didn't play him.
Like it's just like where that like you just took the soul right out of him. Like people don't think of the Shao Kahn is no, they think about power hits, right?
Yeah.
Powerful attacks, and yeah, it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And another thing you mentioned, and I really wanted to hit on this because it irritates me, is the fatal blow. So I don't know why they. I understand every game is going that route. Tekken has Rage, Rage Art. Street Fighter had the Revenge Meter, and Street Fighter 4. Every game has got some type of comeback mechanic, right? Be it a last second super or whatever it is. In Mortal Kombat 9, one of the things they were praised for was I got it, you had Cyrex one touch kill, but that was a character thing. There was no system comeback mechanic. That was, I think, even those that had problems with the bugginess of the game, NRS got high praise for that because they were the only one that didn't put a comeback mechanic in. And then they just said, oh, you know what? We'll just. And then even in MKX, they didn't have that. And then they said, you know what? We're going to go comeback mechanic. Fatal Blow comes in. In this game, man, I don't know if it's better or worse. I mean, I guess it's better than it was in MK11,
Yeah,
but
it's definitely better than 11, but it's not great still.
it's not great because, for one, they have tremendous reach. And when you block them, they have this massive pushback, and a lot of characters can't even punish. And while I'm not a fan of fatal blows, if you're going to put them in the game, one, there should be no pushback, and two, they should all be like minus 30 and easily punishable, or at least minus 20, easily punishable. And I don't know what their obsession is, and it should not come back. It should not come back when it could come back the next round uh, if it hasn't hit yet, but it shouldn't come back.
Yeah.
I think this is again one of those scrubby mechanics that just like in Tekken, I got it. You still have Rage Art, but they're gonna die when they use it. The match is over when it's blocked, because you're just not gonna have the life to survive. Mortal Kombat already gives you the breaker, so if you have 3 bars, you're still gonna get another shot.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be able to do that, and then the fatal blow comes back on deck. I don't agree with that at all.
Well, it teaches players how to be lazy again. That's why other fighting game communities, not to sound elitist, because I made a whole video trying to welcome MK players over to Tekken, but the fact of the matter is that Mortal Kombat trains people to be lazy. It doesn't instill good fighting game fundamentals in people, and Fatal Blow is a big proponent of that. It's like, I've done my super, and there's a bit of pushback, and maybe they didn't punish it, and I'll have it back in 10 seconds, and I've got a breaker. It's like, where's the discipline? Like, there has to be risk and reward. There has to be consequences for your actions. Why are they getting it back in 10 seconds?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the last things that I would change. I really feel like if NRS minimizes some of the scrubby stuff, like the way the fatal blows are, some of them are only punished by range. They reach so far, and then they push back, and then the most you'll get is like a ranged move or something like that to punish. They don't care. It's a slap on the wrist, and then the fatal blow comes back in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
They should all have no pushback, all be heavily minus. I think even the most hardcore of defenders of Mortal Kombat agree with this. And then the throw mechanic. Those are the two things that I think I would change let's get some of the scrubbiness out of the game. And then the other things we talked about, like counter hits, or just expanding the moveset more, fireball things, having characters just be more true to their form,
Yeah.
I think if they did all of those things, they would see a massive, massive change as long as they apply common sense. I know you talked about people that say we're negative, whatever, but you have to understand things don't change by being quiet. There has never been a situation in history, be it real life or gaming, in which people just accepted what they got and said nothing and allowed the game to sell tremendously, and somehow something changed. Things will never change as long as the status quo is not complained about and is acceptable.
Well, this is one thing I didn't understand. I don't understand people that have a problem with something and don't speak up about it. Now, I don't mind if people want to do that. That's their prerogative. It's your own business. But when people come to my video, and I've always said my comment section is always open. I don't delete comments, so they're welcome to say it. But it always confuses me when they say it, because I'm like, it's very clear what I'm trying to do here with everything. It's not just Mortal Kombat. I speak about Helldivers, I speak about Tekken, I spoke about Crunchyroll, and My channel is to critique things because I like to see things in a I want to see things do well, and I think that it's good to have channels where they're very positive all the time and they highlight the good things. I genuinely enjoy watching Maximilian's channel because he looks at the positive side of things a lot of the time. He is critical about things, but a lot of his content is very positive, and it's not like he's lying about stuff. He's just genuinely being positive about something. But what I like doing is I like looking at a game like Tekken, for example, where I'm happy with 90% of it, but the plugger situation and the cheater situation is out of control, and Harada's not doing anything about it. And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, Tekken's my favorite fighting game, so I'm not going to talk about it. No, I want the game to be better, so I'm going to continuously try to apply pressure and hope that my video reaches Harada, and he does something about it. Because for as much respect as I might have for the guy, you sold me a product, and it's not working as intended. So when people say, don't speak about something if you don't like it, my response to them is, you don't speak about it if you don't like it. I'm going to speak about it, because the only way things change is if you speak about them. I gave the example of the Sonic film. When they first dropped that trailer, Sonic looked like he was on meth. He looked like a crackhead.
And everybody complained. Everybody complained about it. Like
everybody was pissed. And guess what? We actually got good Sonic films, and Sonic looks like Sonic in the films. Like I don't have many bad things to say about the Sonic films, especially the first one. I went in skeptical, and I genuinely enjoyed it. The same thing goes for One Piece, for example. A lot of live action anime is shit. And I think Netflix saw the visceral reaction to Cowboy Bebop and how much people hated that live action. They saw the visceral reaction to the live action Dragon Ball, and they probably thought, okay, One Piece is like the most treasured current anime on the planet. If we fuck this up, we're going to be in deep water with the anime community. And that only happens if you're vocal. If you want to keep your mouth shut and not say anything, by all means do that. But the reason that things change in the world, it's not just games, it could be anything in life, is when people are vocal about it. That's the whole reason people protest. That's the whole reason people go and challenge Congress or whatever it might be. That's how life works. So for the people that keep saying that, if that works for you, by all means, sit in your corner of the internet and say nothing. That's not what I like doing. It's not just with games, it's with anything. That's how I am in life. If I see something that I don't like, whether it's online or offline, I'll speak about it. I don't care who I upset.
And for those also that say, oh, it's always so negative, whatever, I promise you right now, if NRS dropped a bombshell patch that significantly raised the power and how each character gets used and how they interact with cameos, we would do a video praising them to the heavens on this.
Yeah.
So they just don't give us something to be positive about. And I know that some people have said to me, oh, well, they're working night and day to fix all these bugs, etc. The bugs, things in the game would be tolerated if the overall playing the game part was fun and enjoyable. Things are not tolerated because even playing the game is not fun. It just shows lack of effort in how the game is done. They just did a patch, nerf Johnny Cage to the ground, and now people are like, oh, well, they'll just do the lazy thing and nerf Kenshi to the floor and then nerf Raiden to the floor and call it a day. Even skins, I got it. You want to sell me skins? Hey, I'm all for you making money. You're in business to make money. I accept this. But at least let me feel like you worked on the skin to make it look good for the money you're charging me. Yeah. There are so many mistakes they have made. And if they were to turn things around and started, hey, if the pay content was cool, I would say, hell yeah, I bought it. It's cool. You don't have to buy it, but I love it. We would be positive about this content. If they did a massive turnaround and a mega patch, which changed so many things, we would be extremely positive and talk very hopeful about the game. But right now, they're just not giving us that opportunity. So it's not about us hating on the game or being negative. It's we want to see things change. And when they do, we will be extremely positive about it.
Yeah, well, I don't even accept the fact that I'm being negative about it. What I think I'm doing is I'm looking at something for what it is and I'm being critical. I think people are using the wrong word. You can be negative about things that are doing well and you can hate on them. For example, we always use the wrestling examples. There's like a split between the fan bases. There's WWE and AEW. No matter what the WWE does, the AEW guys will hate it. And no matter what the AEW guys do, the WWE guys will hate it. That's being negative just for the sake of being tribal. And that's not what I'm doing, because I'm not being tribal with Tekken or Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. I'm looking at something that we can all see. Like, for example, the desync issue. Me bringing it up in a video is not being me being negative. I'm literally pointing something out and being critical of it. And the problem here is that they're using the word negative anytime you're not speaking about the game in a positive light. But if the game is literally doing something wrong, why am I going to just stroke it? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why am I going to glaze the game if it's not working properly? It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. People confuse critical content with being negative all the time. They're two different things. It's not negative to point something out that is literally there for us to see in 4K.
Exactly. And critiquing is something that gets done all the thing. And I think critiquing is very important in improving the product going forward.
Yeah.
So that either the product throughout the rest of its life improves or the next product is even better than the previous one.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much, our standpoint on it. But as always, I love having you on. I love your insight to the game. I love the video you made about the changes you would make. I would love to see Mortal Kombat be brought into the modern era as like this is the new Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
So I think that would blow people away. And I think the response to Mortal Kombat would be massive. And they're in business to make money. I think they would shatter the sales of MK11 if they did that.
Oh,
Kind of like
100%.
this is the new era of Mortal Kombat. This is how Mortal Kombat is now. And then when you see that it's successful, build on it.
Yeah, I have an idea. I'm working on another video right now of what I think the next Mortal Kombat game needs to be. I won't really give anything up right now because I've got a couple ideas I'm still fleshing out. But one thing I think that they should do, I know this might be like a bit of a radical change, but because of the bad taste that has been left in people's mouths, just off the cuff, I think that they should stop giving Mortal Kombat number conventions now. Because they've reset the timeline 100 times. Yep. And I think that they should call the next one like the New Era or a New Awakening or some bullshit like that or whatever. And they should start giving them named titles because we've got Mortal Kombat 1 and we've got Mortal Kombat 1 and then we're going to have Mortal Kombat 2 and another Mortal Kombat 2.
I agree.
Stupid. It's
so
dumb.
give it named. Like we all know MK5 was MK Deadly Alliance, but it wasn't called MK5. It was called Deadly Alliance.
Yeah. I think giving Mortal Kombat games sub names based on where the story's going would be good for them. I think using numbers now is kind of tired because they've reset the timeline 3 times. But I've got a video that I'm working on that I have like a bunch of ideas of what I think they could do for the next Mortal Kombat game to make it really successful. But obviously, like, they're just my ideas. They could also fall flat. But based on what they've done, I think that maybe it's high time they start listening to people other than themselves.
I agree 100%. And I think all of us will be looking forward to that video. I want to thank you for joining me again. Hopefully, next patch, things really get shaken up. And when we do this, it'll be like, wow, did you see what they're doing? And because we love Mortal Kombat, we want it to be great. But we know it's not going to be great if we just stay silent and accept how it is.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, before we go, I did make a promise to someone. I don't know if you know, Tom, but I've got a Discord called the Iron Fist Asylum.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah, I've got. I'm gonna put the link in my comments section. So basically, there's a guy in my Discord called BoyManBid, and he messaged me and he asked if he could start running his own tournaments in the Iron Fist Asylum because it was something that I was initially gonna do for the community. But because I'm traveling around Europe a lot right now and I'm always back and forth, I work 2 jobs. It's really difficult for me to then start running tournaments. So BoyManBid has taken it upon himself. So we're currently taking sign-ups for the tournament. I believe he told me that Porkchop, I think he said, Porkchop, the famous Tekken player, has signed up as well.
Yeah.
So if you want to sign up, join the Discord. It'll be in the link in the description. And we'll have you on. I believe that he's fronting everything himself because I'm going to be away in Japan next month for a whole month, so I won't be around. But we're going to be doing tournaments in the Iron Fist Asylum, and BoyManBid is the one that's running it right now.
Awesome. Sounds awesome, man. That Discord's awesome, by the way.
Those guys are great in there.
Yeah. So, well, Mike, thanks for joining me, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see what's in store for us with Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thanks for having me.